Today's topic is budgeting. Now, if you're like a lot of people, budgeting is one of those things that you feel like you should be doing, but probably either aren't or not as well as you feel like you should be doing. Key word there is this word should. It probably just feels like this responsibility that you largely have failed at. I want to change your perspective on that. Now, we're going to jump in and talk about different approaches to budgeting and implementing a budget. But first, we got to address the question, why should one budget? Think about it like this. If money represents opportunity in your life, one way of thinking about a budget is ensuring that you're making the most of that opportunity. So think about any other resource in your life, your energy, your time. So think about your schedule. Think about how obsessive we are about our calendars and our schedules and how we track our time. It would make sense that we would do the same with our money. And therefore, we turn to budgeting. So as I mentioned, there are different approaches to budgeting. I'll outline two broad approaches. Now, the one that you're probably most familiar with, or the one that comes to mind when you think budget, is kind of this tracking approach, right? So where you're meticulously tracking and documenting inflows and outflows and where all the money goes by category. This can be useful because just from a behavioral standpoint, if you're tracking any kind of behavior, that automatically gives you this awareness, and then therefore it's more likely you're able to modify how you're behaving according to your wishes. Now, there are all kinds of different apps and tools and programs out there. If you just Google budgeting tools, there's this plethora of different things you can use to implement the tracking approach. This is where most people get lost. It's very overwhelming, right? Which tool do I use? How often should I check up on it? Oh no, I slipped. Therefore, am I just totally invalidate my entire effort? So you could come at budgeting from a different way. This is our second approach. The second approach kind of simplifies things. It's the pay yourself first approach. So the pay yourself first approach to budgeting really just says, hey, let me make sure long-term, future me is taken care of first, right? So when I get paid, I'll contribute to things like retirement, to saving for an appropriate emergency fund. If you have kids, to saving to, college for them, right? So all of those future goals, you just make sure you account for those first, and then whatever's left over, feel free to enjoy however you wish, right? So it kind of takes the pressure off of the meticulous tracking, because what you're saying is, I'm going to track the most important things and take care of those. And then beyond that, you can kind of relieve the pressure and just spend those resources as you will. So there you have it. Two approaches to budgeting: tracking or pay yourself first. So I know what you're asking. Which one's better? Which one should you use? I don't know. It's probably a combination of both, because think about it this way. The tracking method is inherently descriptive of your current behavior. It simply accurately describes what you're currently doing. But the whole point is, what if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? The other approach is more prescriptive, meaning here's what I should be doing. I should be saving for these long-term goals first. So it's probably a combination of the two. The whole point is you want to be intentional with your budget. With your forethought, you ought to determine what matters most to you and make sure those things are taken care of. That would be the pay yourself first. But on the other hand, if you're describing and tracking and aware of how you're spending your other resources, there's probably opportunities there to kind of recapture some of those funds that are being spent unintentionally and redirect them to the categories that you'd rather be spending on. So it's probably a combination of both, and therefore probably one of those tools out there for tracking budget. Our firm actually offers one of those tools to our clients via our financial planning software. But at the end of the day, budgeting is important. Budgeting helps you capture this opportunity that your income represents and use that in a more intentional way. Now, this topic of budgeting is one that we get a lot frequently from our younger clients because it's a big, important topic, the foundation of your financial plan early on. Maybe you have other questions. If that's the case, go ahead and submit a question in the link below in the description, and you may see it here as part of our NextGen Q&A series.